Welcome back, everyone, to More Than One Way. We're glad that you're with us as we're revisiting some of our favorite episodes this winter. This next episode that we're resharing covers a topic that seems to be timely and on everyone's mind, and that's finding a way to love your enemies, or at least tolerate them. In this episode, we visit the parable of the Good Samaritan and discuss ways to put our differences aside in order that we may still be there for, and maybe even help, those we disagree with or have even come to strongly dislike or hate. As always, we hope you gain a fresh perspective when listening to this episode, and we'd love to hear your thoughts.
So how in the world does that guy get to that place? How does that happen? How do we get to a place where we can get past our differences, get past looking at people as if somehow or another they're on another team than us? Mm-hmm. Get past the hate and move to love. How do we do that?
When life throws a challenge at you, one thing is certain. To find a resolution for every issue, every problem, for everybody, there's more than one way. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the More Than One Way podcast. I'm Whitney Ross. With me, as always, my good friend, Thom Rasnick.
Hey, Whitney.
Hey, Thom. How are you?
I am good. I'm good.
Good.
Somebody was visiting this town in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Okay.
They were in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and they were walking down the street in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and they saw right outside of a shop one of those sandwich board kind of signs. And on it, it said, "I love you." And then underneath it said, "I suppose you probably don't believe me because I don't even know who you are. But if people can hate for no reason, then I can love for no reason."
Oh, wow.
And I was so caught because the person sent it and said, "This made me think of you." And I was like, wow, that is so cool. I'm so honored that somebody would think of me. Mm-hmm. But when I read it, I thought of our guest, and our guest is Mary Ellen Brewington.
All right.
She's been here once before, and I wanted to bring her back to talk about how do we move, a big spiritual question, how do we move from fearing the other, even hating the other for whatever reason, sometimes like the sign is saying, no reason, we just do. How do we move from that into love? Because all spiritual traditions talk about that and say, this is the goal. And I think Mary Ellen can help us get at that.
Gosh,
so welcome,
I hope
Mary
so. I hope I can get to that. That'd be nice. And y'all are nice to have me here today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you bet.
You bet. Well, see, part of the deal is, truth be told, full disclosure, we met at Mary Ellen's house, this group, and we talked about some of this. And we talked about it from the perspective of what the Christian world said about it, starting with Jesus. And Jesus in the gospel says, love your enemies. Do good to those who are mean toward you. Pray for those who even you think might want to hurt you. And I thought, man alive, how in the world do you do that? But it's really trying to just take that sign to another place, another level. And it made me think of a story within Scripture.
Oh, wow. What story?
So let's go with that, okay? So the story is a very familiar story, and I'm going to try to modernize it a little bit. Okay. I don't think I'm disobeying the story by modernizing it. So this guy's going home after a day of work, and usually he doesn't go the dangerous way because it's dangerous. But he was running late. He wanted to get home, and this was a quicker way to go, so he decided to take a chance. And he went the dangerous way. And while he was walking along, as fate would have it, somebody beat him up, robbed him, left him in a ditch for dead, really. Well, just about that time, a priest coming from church decided to take that same route. And he walked by and he saw the guy in the ditch, and he was concerned, but part of him was, I'm not sure if I should go over there and find out, because if he's dead, then that'll make me unclean. And I'll have to go through all this ritual stuff in order to get clean again. And I'm not sure I want to do that. And I don't want to take a chance. Plus, there's a committee meeting at the church, and I got to get there.
Always.
Yeah, always committee meeting. So he walked by, right? And they're the same deal. They're the same ethnic group, but he walked by. And then another guy who's part of that same church comes walking along, and he's kind of like going to lead the committee meeting, and he's kind of a big wig within the church. And he walks up and he sees the same kind of process goes through his head. Should I stop? Should I not stop? This might put me in danger. I'm not sure. I don't know. And decides just to walk on past. And then a guy comes from, wasn't a part of their church at all. As a matter of fact, this guy didn't go to church. He didn't have a church. He wasn't a part of any religion, really. And the people from the church, that the guy in the ditch and the two guys who went by, the people from that church didn't think very well of this guy or his group, right? As a matter of fact, not only did they not think well of him, they hated him because he challenged everything that they were about. This guy, for whatever reason, stops. Oh, and I forgot to say, in the guy's group that was a part, that was walking along and stopped, his group hated the other group. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was hate for everybody. Okay. So he stops, though. Somehow or another, he's able to get past the hate. And he stops. And he picks the guy up, and he puts him in his car, and he drives him to a hotel. And he bandages him up, and he says, "I'm gonna just let him sleep here for the night. If he needs to go to the hospital, I'll be back tomorrow, and I'll take him to the hospital. But I kind of want to just take care of him here. Mm-hmm. If there's any more expense, I'll pay for it." Right? And that's the story. So how in the world does that guy get to that place? How does that happen? How do we get to a place where we can get past our differences, get past looking at people as if somehow or another they're on another team than us, get past the hate and move to love? How do we do that?
Well, I think the guy who helped him saw himself in the beaten and stripped man.
Ah, okay.
Like the man who was in the ditch, think about it, he's stripped, he's beaten, he's in a ditch. You can't get more vulnerable than that.
Yeah.
And I think we'll just go ahead and call him the Good Samaritan. I think that he saw himself, he could see him, he recognized himself in that man.
Yeah.
Well, what would you want to have done if you were stripped, beaten, and in a ditch?
Yeah.
You know?
Somebody to stop and help.
Somebody to help, yeah.
So somehow or another, being able to have empathy for the person is one step in how you move. Can I put myself in the other person's place? And when Jesus talks about loving your enemy, that's what Jesus is talking about. Can just for a minute, I see the world through the eyes of the other person? So the vulnerable, the hurt, if I can do that, then I have a better chance of loving them. Right?
Right. But do we avoid doing that because we're afraid? So I identify with the other two guys too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one guy was afraid to deal with it. He was going to become unclean.
Yeah.
And the other guy, it sounds like to me, he was in a hurry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can kind of identify with that too. I'm too busy or too afraid to get to know my enemy or to interact with them or deal about them.
Yeah.
But what if we slowed down for a minute? Just slowed down and listened to them or heard their story or identified with them.
So heard their story. What were you going to say?
I think sometimes for me, thinking of myself in that situation, I've found maybe I've come across someone where I didn't know how to help, where I didn't feel like maybe I had the skill or what was need, or I just didn't know what was needed. And I've let that be an excuse to not help.
Yeah.
Because
I get that.
Rather than just doing whatever I could do.
Yeah.
I was worried about doing the right thing, or am I helping in the right way?
Sure.
You know, maybe I help, but maybe that's not the help they need. You know, just all the, I think you just get in your head a lot of times.
Right.
And when you get in your head, then you're away from your heart, you know, and it can get easy to distance yourself and just go on.
And that's all that stuff is so true. And it's a matter of when to help, not to help, and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that I might not have gotten across very well in that story is how much they hated each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's trying to see that story through the lens of how do I love my enemy? How do I do what the sign is saying? How do I love just because rather than hate just because? And people have written about this in the spiritual world forever because it's hard to do.
Yeah.
All right? So it's the hate part that the guy was able to overcome. It's and that's the deal. It's kind of like the story you were telling me about football teams.
Yeah. We were, you know, with it being football season, I think it's easy to, if you're a sports fan, to get wrapped up in cheering for your team and cheering against another team. And kind of on the internet each year, it seems that they put out a list of the most unfavorable places for fans to go to. You know, like they talk about, I don't know that I want to name specific schools, but there's some schools where.
Do it.
I know I really want
do
to.
it.
Like I know,
as long as it's not Tennessee or Florida State, do it.
LSU is one that's been notoriously aggressive toward visiting fans, and so there's almost kind of a, hey, if you go to a game there, just be aware. You know, just be on your guard, that kind of thing. You don't know what you're going to run into, especially if the game starts going lopsided one way or the other.
Yeah,
that could, you know, create something. And there's some energy in that. That starts fun in that kind of being a part of a team and fanhood and that kind of stuff. But then it can start to turn a little bit, and it become that I'm not so sure I feel safe.
Right.
I'm not sure I want to go to that game at that place because being a fan of another team, I may be in danger there.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's kind of a playful example, but I think it's something that we can relate to, and it's something that it can definitely escalate. I mean, we have those teams or other teams that we don't like. For whatever list of reasons, we can kind of stereotype people from this place are like this, and we're not, so we don't like them. Or
so that right there is getting more into the camp of, yes, it was the Good Samaritan. That was that story. So it's getting into that story more. Okay, so that feeling that you have against an opponent, another team.
Yeah.
But okay, that's getting into the ballpark, as it were. Mary Ellen, the other night you were talking a little bit about how we kind of see this in a larger scale in politics right now.
Yes, we do.
How do you see that?
Well, we're just so divided. Everybody is so divided. And here's the thing. So I may not agree with Whitney about a social issue, but we probably agree on some economic stuff. Who knows? I don't know. I'd love to know more about your politics, but I'd like to hear your standpoint of things and try to understand where you're coming from to come to your conclusions. And nobody does that anymore. Nobody listens to each other anymore.
Okay.
I was thinking the other day, everybody also listens typically to one news source. So I wake up in the morning with Morning Joe on MSNBC, and they're very opinionated, and it's very personal. And then I might switch over to Fox because I want to see another story, and I stay there for half a second, and then I go on to something else. But the other day I was thinking about, do y'all remember Walter Cronkite? I barely remember him. And the only time I can recall any clips of him breaking from his journalist mindset was when he reported on President Kennedy's death. And I went back and watched the clip the other day. And he is completely professional. And at one point when he has to tell the audience that President Kennedy has died, he takes his glasses off, he gets verklempt, he puts his glasses back on, and he goes back to reporting the facts. So I think we have to remember that our news media is feeding us a bunch of opinions based on their perceptions and assumptions.
All right. Okay.
And that's part of us getting on a team, either it's Team CNN or Team Fox or Team whatever, and they get us riled up and twirled up.
Okay. So within the context of loving your neighbor, it's really hard to do when you get all riled up and all that stuff. You just, what did you say, verklempt?
Verklempt, when you get upset, when you get choked up. It's
There's a word. How do you spell that word?
I don't know how to spell it, but it's a Yiddish.
All right. I love that
Verklempt.
word. That's a great word. I'm going to have to try to figure out how to put that in the new. I'm preaching Sunday, so that's coming in there somewhere. But anyway, so it's how do you move past that energy? Same with the game, in a deeper level with politics, because politics affects our lives more, right?
Yeah.
Every part of our lives. And we're so caught up in hating each other that we can't solve the problems that are critical.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm going off.
No,
you should have never told me to go down this road.
No. This is a great road. This is a great road because this is the energy that has to happen in order for us to let the story of the parable of the Good Samaritan do its work. So if we want to learn how to move from hating somebody, hating the other person, into something more akin to loving the person, parables are great because parables invite us into it so that we can do it without having to go out on the street and make a mess. Right? So we can do it in a way that where it's kind of set up in a nice little package in a sense. But in order to get into it, we have to get into that energy. We can't just be like, oh, that's a nice little story about helping people. Yes, it is a nice story about helping people, but it's more than that. And so in order to get to how do I move from hate to love, I have to experience what it's like to hate.
Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I have. I really, really, really...
hate, like full-on hate.
Full-on hate. So I really had to get at this, because for me, I want this stories like these Good Samaritan stuff to have an impact on my life. And so I read the story before I was coming over to your house for us to do the Bible study. And I thought, I wasn't getting at that energy, so I went to politics and it was like, yeah, it's there. I see it there, but I don't feel it that much as it seems like other people feel it. That somehow or another they're being attacked if their opinion is attacked or, and all that kind of stuff. I don't feel that as much. So I thought, well, where does that energy come from me? And it was Wall Street, in the whole of Wall Street. Okay, so I watched a Frontline documentary and a couple other documentaries and then that movie, The Big Short, all in a week, to try to get at what was going on in that whole 2008 crash thing. What was going on in that Wall Street world that just is such a foreign world to me. And as an aside, it's easy to hate what you don't understand.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
Right?
That's a good point.
It's easy to hate what I don't know, and I don't know that world. It doesn't make sense to me. And I hear people talking, and it's like, geez, okay.
It's like another language.
Whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's the hate. And so part of the hate then was just put on people, especially the CEOs. So these CEOs, for me, I demonize them. These are just bad people. And whenever I do that, I'm falling into this world of us and them, bad guys, good guy, okay? Dualistic split. I don't want to do that. So thus watching all that stuff. So I watch all that stuff and I'm still just sitting there like, these guys, oh my God. Okay? Keep watching. Finally, I'm watching with the Senate. When those guys had to go before the Senate and they were all sitting there and I was like, oh, good, they're going to get it. This is when they get it. And that's what should happen, Yeah. And maybe it should, but I don't have to hate them still, right? Okay. So I'm watching. And this one guy from one of the banks, one of the CEOs from one of the banks, a senator's talking to him. And the senator says to him, okay, your own internal email says what I'm about to talk to you about was a shitty deal. Okay, so you knew this was a shitty deal. And he didn't respond to that. And he said, but But let me get this straight. Let me get this shitty deal straight, just to make sure I know what you were doing. He said, so you had people coming in, and you sold them these credit default swap stuff. You sold them debt, basically, and you knew that this was a bad deal. You knew that this was going to crash, and you didn't tell them. And then you bet against them, and you bet against them doing well in the first place. So you played both sides of the streets, right? You couldn't lose. They were going to lose, and you knew it. And the senator said to him, don't you think that you had a responsibility to your customer? And the guy
I'm scared of what he said.
I know. Well, the guy said, essentially, within the no, he said, don't you find that there's a problem with that there's something wrong with that. And the guy said, within the context of market making, it was not wrong. It's a good thing to do.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But for me, after I said, oh, Jesus, and oh, Buddha, and all those guys, after I said that, I what I realized was, oh, that's the lens through which these people see the world. How do I do market making all the time? Which I guess means, how do I make money any way I can on some level? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not particularly for that, but I get that's what he was doing. And I get that that's how he saw his job and his life. And if I'm raised in that world of this is what it's all about, this is what we're all about, mm-hmm. It's going to have an impact on me. And so, once again, I still wanted them to have consequences. I still wanted that. But I could understand him. And I didn't hate him.
You saw more of
That's
his
right.
story.
That's right. Exactly what you were saying.
But you took the time to do that, Thom.
Yes,
you
I
took
did.
the time to really investigate all of this.
Because I am such a great person. That's what that is it. No, the thing is anybody could do that. It's what you're saying. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes. Mm-hmm. But I think once again, that's what the stories do to me. It's like, okay, now I get it. Now I'm in the story, and I could move from, God, this guy's, he's the worst person in the world, demonize him, to, no, he's just a human being like I am, and he's in an environment that supports the way that they're going about this work. Don't think, not for it, but I don't hate him anymore. And it does take time, right? But we all know that, because part of the deal is, it doesn't mean I'm going to have warm, gushy feelings for the guy. There's still going to be annoyance and frustration and hope for justice, for lack of a better word. I'm just trying to get at how do I move from hate to in love? By love, what I think Jesus was getting at was, can I see the world from that person's point of view? Can I understand that person's story? And if I can, then I have a better chance. All right? So it's not that everything's going to be perfect. And that's that guy. So then we go further down the trail to meaner and meaner people, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then I would say it's the same process.
You know, since we've rediscovered the Good Samaritan the past couple of weeks, I go back to my childhood Good Samaritan. Mm-hmm. And I always thought the Good Samaritan was oh so good. What a fantastic human being. And I always perceived the people who walked by to be really terrible, terrible people. Right. And maybe even the guy in the ditch was a bad person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now that we've kind of revisited this story, everybody's just human.
Yeah.
They're just doing the best they can. And sometimes you just have to pause and get down in the ditch with people.
Yes.
But like you said, it doesn't mean you have to roll around in bed and love them to death, you know?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Don't have to marry that person.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And like you say, it does take time. It does take intention. It does take effort. It does take energy.
And it takes something just to even to get to the point to want to learn more
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can think of people that pop up and you're like, I don't want to know any more about that person. I mean, I've already decided, I was like, I don't want to waste time reading about them because they're this, and this. But your story about the Wall Street thing is, so maybe just beyond that, maybe I do need to learn more. Yeah. Maybe I do need to take some time and just say, okay, I don't understand. I'm angry, but I'm going to try.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because another piece added to this with the whole love your enemy, Good Samaritan stuff, is Jesus saying, when you're looking at somebody else, somebody especially who you think is different than you, why do you focus so much on the speck in their eye before you take the log out of your own eye? Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think about that? Because that, once again, these are helpful tools, not trying to put anybody down, not trying to say beat yourself up, trying to say before you take the speck out of somebody else, the metaphor, take the log out of yours. Now, why do you think he said that? In the context of loving your enemies like the Good Samaritan.
For me, it means look at yourself first. And one of my friends actually says it to me often when I'm carrying on about something. Susan will go, well, get the log out of your own eye.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But for me, it's look at yourself first.
Yeah.
I don't know. What does it mean to you, Whitney?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to say it. I think it's just that temptation just not to jump, toward that other person first, not to jump to what's easy.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Yeah. So part of, and notice the size differential. So the log, right? Okay. So the log's in my eye, the speck's in your eye, right? So it means, man, I really got to look at myself because something that person's doing is just hooking the heck out of me. And that means that there's something going on in me. Right? So that's an added piece. It's okay, if I'm going to really try to love somebody else, then I got to take a look at why is what he's doing upsetting me so much, or she. Mm-hmm. Why is that happening? Now, if it's somebody like Putin, well, yeah, right. And there does have to be almost like a whole nother category for sociopaths.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so if you're going to talk about the most horrific people who've lived, I would throw them into the camp of these are mentally ill sociopaths that somehow or another have taken power. Okay, and so let's not go there. For those of you listening at home still.
Still being the key.
Yeah, still being the operative word here. Don't start with the hardest person in the world to love, right? Don't start with the biggest enemy on the planet. Start with something closer to home.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Start with something that's bothering you. That's why the team example, why do you get caught up in that whole world? The politics example. Sure, you're going to vote the way you're going to vote and have your values and all that you vote for. That's great. But why do you demonize the other side? That becomes the question. Why did they become people who are who have horns? Okay, so it's get closer to home. And part of the getting closer to home is you. And that's what Jesus is trying to get at. Because if you can love the things within yourself that you don't like, you might be able to love what you see in your neighbor that bothers you.
This is definitely a topic that it's good to take some time, but it's definitely something we could revisit. It's not something we solve just in one conversation. And I think that's the key. You brought that up, just having that ability to have conversations around hard things. It's great, having the opportunity to do that. And I hope that as you've listened and maybe different scenarios or people or situations have come to your mind, that maybe this episode will be a step in your process toward getting to that position of loving someone else. And we would love to hear your journey with that and hear what you're thinking. And if there's something that pops up that really strikes you that you want to talk about, send it our way because we'd love to have you be a part of that conversation. So thanks so much for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the More Than One Way podcast, brought to you by the Center for Spiritual Practice in Knoxville, Tennessee. We really appreciate your time and would love to hear your feedback. You can reach us by emailing hello@morethanonewaypod.com, or you can connect with us on social media using the handle @morethanonewaypod. If you found this episode helpful, we hope that you'll share it with your friends, with your family, with people you work with all the people who you know. Thank you and take care.